Okay, I'm just gonna give a quick run through of dealing with your thruster model and how I'd personally go about it, which would maximize the UV mapping. As you say, you've got some of it you've already applied materials to. As I can see here, there are some where you haven't, but I'm assuming in that instance that you would want to apply the same one to the top and the bottom. And I also note that most of it is duplicated, so what I would do to maximize this, I take some of these and I'm just going to duplicate them and move them to another layer, and actually let me turn on screencast keys so you can at least see roughly what I'm doing. So what have I just moved? I've just moved that post. The reason I've selected both I'll explain in a minute. Now I know from looking at these that and that all duplicated above, so again I'll just move them to layer 2 so we can work with that. I'll select that, duplicate that, move that to layer 2, select these, duplicate them, move it to layer 2, and then select these 3 and duplicate them and move that to layer 2. So I've got the basics of it there. As I say, I would be inclined to make that one mesh personally. I don't know if there's a very specific reason you just use boxes. I don't know if the game itself likes just having boxes rather than that being a single mesh. I don't know, so I'll show you what I mean. Say if I just add a box, and we'll bring it up here for now, scale that up so it's roughly the same size. Apply the scale. Oh, that's something, by the way, all your objects. Make sure you apply rotation and scale. That can really mess up the UV maps if you're not careful. So in this case here, this is just going to be a rough to show you what I'd do. Control B it, bring it up to about there, and then do the same on there. Control B, something like that. Say, and then I would select faces. I always prefer to have increment for snapping reasons. So E to extrude on the Y, pull that out, and then I can just GY and I could just say snap if I wanted to. If we move this back so that lines up, go back into edit mode, then they can line up. Go into wireframe mode. I'll go into vertex mode. There we go. Back into solid mode. So that's just giving a rough representation of it. And go in face mode. E on the Y, pull them out. So that would be the rough premise of that. And then you could build your mesh in there, and again the way I'd probably build that would be different based on just what I know really. So I'd again add that Rx minus 7. Right. And I'll go into wireframe. actually make sure I've got the rotation done as well. Go into edit, edge mode, and I'll just do this. This is a quick way of doing it, is just snapping it to X to the other geometry. So, and I can snap that to the, like that. Now, what I can do there, I can go into edit mode, EY, Control N, Control N just to make sure it's all pointing the right way. So I can pull that out a bit actually. I've moved that, obviously I didn't mean to move it. So go back in there, Control R. I'm adding a loop cut there simply because I want the cuts when I put a boolean in to be where I want them to be. So add a cube, move it roughly up to the, scale it on the Z. Move it in, select these two, hide the rest for now. Take that, I'll push those out a bit actually. Scale on the Z a bit more, so something like that. And I'll just move these manual. I'll get roughly where I want to be. Happy with that. Origin to geometry, so it lines up right. Now I'm going to add an array modifier. And just sort of roughly like that. Take that up. Add another one. Take it up like that. Select that. Control minus. And apply that. And now if I go into edit mode, you can see how that's nicely joined up those without ruining it. So with the face, I can select them, boundary loop, mark it as a seam. I can unwrap that using a project from view so it looks pretty. Hide that. So what I'll do now is I'll select all these and mark them as seams. And select that, mark that as a seam. Unwrap them. Move them off. Unhide everything. Control A, that makes everything fit. So that Control A means they're all now at the same size. Right. So what I'll do is I'll just position these. Now looking at that, the seam's down the middle, so I need to rotate that 90 degrees. So I know it's the same axis as that. We can make sure that lines up by checking that, which it does. Right, now these, I can just select them and I change this to vertex and turn on the snap, and I move it, I can line them up. So L to select it, G to move, L to select, G to move, L to select, G to move, B to select everything, turn that off, do that, C, roughly line that up, B middle mouse button, B, G and move, select everything, go into the cursor, scale it, and that gives me the maximum size I can get away with those where everything is relative. Now the only thing here is the internal bits are all sharing the same thing, so you need to decide whether you actually want to do that or not. I can come in, make sure that's to bounds, GY, you can't go any further. So I can, if I wanted to, I could separate these. I'm going to have one roughly lying over, and if they're controlled now, it'll still snap to that thing. So two of them now occupy the same space and one doesn't. So if you did want them all separately, then you would have to shrink everything down a bit. But I'm going to cheat because I doubt there'll be much detail there. So I'm just going to keep them all at the same level. So that they all, because I'm not using ambient occlusion, I can get away with that as well. So that's that done. That's roughly how you do it anyway. So I'd do something similar in there, and then this particular part you would apply the seams where you expect it to be cut. So I would be inclined to say I'd try these first, mark them as a seam, do the same on the bottom. Yeah, actually mark that as a seam, why not? And then you can always just check what's going on by hitting unwrap at that point. And as you can see, it's a mess at the moment because I've only unwrapped part of it. So we need to, actually I don't want to get rid of that that's in the way. And no, actually I don't want to do that. Let's try that. You can see how it suddenly breaks up when you start separating things out. Now if you switch on this, so it can tell you where you've got your problem, and that's one where it's a problem. So let's just slap let's see what happens now. So now that, I'd call that acceptable. The only thing now is I'll want to get that back. So I shall stop that being a seam and unwrap, and there you go, you've got a very tidy unwrap now of that whole thing. So that's the sort of the way I'd be inclined to use that. And having done that, what I can do is I can make it fit. So the first things we'll do, we'll take that, we'll give it the blue material. G that along the y-axis. Scale it on the y as well. So it's too much G back. And just rotation scale, make sure everything lines up. And now what I can do is I can mirror these by selecting them, inverting the selection, or I can take them, go into 7, go into wireframe, right, and that tells you roughly. As you can see, actually I'm pretty close, not far off at all. Definitely not far off. So I can take that, I can move that forward on the Y so it lines up, and I'm quite happy with that actually. And I'll hide them too. I'll move them to another layer and unhide those two. Oh. Right, so I'll move that to layer 2. There we go. So that's that one done very quickly, and it lines up with that one. And so what I'll do now is I'll actually take these pieces, move them back to layer 2, like that, move that to layer 2, and I actually need that, and I'm duplicate that and move that to layer 2 as well, because it's all about wherever you've got duplicates. So the only thing I do want to do with this is I want to take these faces, make sure I'm in median mode, do a shift 1 and scale Z so that there we go. Then shift 1 hides the background layer. So now we know we're playing okay, and I had better save this before I go any further. Here we go. Right, now what I'm going to do with the rest of this, first of all make sure everything's got the scale applied, and that hasn't, so again Control A, rotation and scale. Yeah, okay, that's great. That's fine. Now I do need to move that back to layer 2 as well. Now, what I'm going to do first is make this one unit. So I'll select both, do a Control J, go into edit mode, go into wireframe mode. Make sure I'm in face mode, deselect everything. So select those two, scale Z0, and that'll scale them together. Then W and remove doubles. That gets rid of 4 vertices. Then I will delete the faces. Then I will delete the edge loop by Alt click and Control X. Then I'll actually do Control R, return twice, and that makes sure that edge loop is smack in the middle. And the reason for this is, what I can do then, select them, invert the selection, delete the points, select those, and we'll make sure the origin goes to there. Make sure that origin is at the geometry. Then what I can do, I can select that, go in, add a mirror modifier on the Z axis, make sure that's all active. Now if I go into the edit mode, I can move them up a tiny bit. Oh, I need to take the clipping off. Actually what I need to do is I'm going to need to come out, I need to move it up slightly on the Z axis. Go back into edit mode. Wireframe. GZ. That now will align up with that. Z8. Right, and the reason I've done all of that is I can now go in, get rid of all the existing seams, local mode, edge mode, select one edge, mark that as a seam, mark them as a seam, unwrap, then what I'll do is go select a face, then L to select everything, U, follow active quads, reset it first, now follow active quads, and you see that's made it equal. So reset, follow active quads, and we'll choose length. So that's now the right shape. And we can come out of that. Come out to local mode. That's now UV mapped. And if we look at the first one, so having applied the mirror, we can now add an array. Like that. Then 3. So there's your 3 beams, but it's only using one little bit of the UV map. Save. And I'll show you the reason pretty soon when I actually go into the UV map. So again, same thing, edit. It's a bit of a mess, so go into isolation mode. Get rid of that. Face. Control click. Right. No, actually. So we don't want that, I don't think. Select it, unwrap. Yeah, that's what we want. So that's that UV'd nicely out of local mode. Into local mode, select that one. And what we'll do is in the materials, and switch to cycles because I just prefer it it's easier to work with, I think. Use nodes, just gives you a simple thing there. And material, got that base material. And again, use nodes, blue, use nodes. Right, so now everything has a material. Like that. Again, save. So, let's tackle this one. That'll be very similar to the other one. I go into basic mode, select everything, get rid of the seam. All I'm doing there is a shortcut, so be Control E, clear seam. And here, and that would be mesh, edges, arc seam. I'll unwrap, see what that looks like. That'll work. So come out to that, come out of local mode, come out of edit mode. This one, local mode, edit mode. This one I'll probably do slightly different, but would start with the same. Just change the viewport colour so I can see what I'm working on. Just changing the viewport colour, that at all, it's not affecting the vertex. So, mark seam, mark seam, mark seam. How does that look? So now your untidy bit is this bit in the middle, but again it's that close that you can get away with, to be perfectly honest. So I'm going to get away with that. I'm going to leave that as is. This one, that's overkill. Again, just select everything, clear the seams, just unwrap that, and it's just one line of polygons, so that's fine. So don't need to do anything with that. This one, again, get rid of any seams, and what I would do is select them, boundary loop, mark it. Then I'd actually get rid of that one, so there's no seam on there. And again, mark these. That's not quite right. We need an edge there. Let's try it. There we go. So that's that unwrapped. So now I've got everything unwrapped I need unwrapped. So now what we need to do is we'll apply the cursor to there, so shift, cursor to selected. And the reason for this will be apparent in a minute. Now origin to 3D cursor, origin to 3D cursor, origin to 3D cursor, origin to 3D cursor, and origin to 3D cursor. So now we pull up one, we've still got that item highlighted, add an array, get it roughly lined up. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Not quite exact, so just pull it back. There we go. That one we only need one item, and that can just go all the way to there. That one, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. That one, again, that would likely be 6 or more. And we can actually hide option 1 now, because we can be able to see this clearer. Get that lined up. 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. So that's them done. So that again will line up with the others, so add an array. That's a 1.48 offset. This will be slightly different because it's a bigger item. That looks almost right. Holding shift down now just so I can get a very close match. 70's too much, 60's too little, 3.65. That looks about right. There we go. And that one, I think, just needs to come out a tiny bit more. Like that. There we are. Happy with that. Save that. So now I've got all of them done, so now all I need to do on all of them is add. I select that, is add a mirror. And I will mirror it on the Z-axis. Add a mirror on the Z-axis. Add a mirror on the Z-axis. Add a mirror on the Z-axis. Now, even though you've got all that geometry, you're only actually dealing with one of each item, and it's when you start doing the UVs completely it sticks out. So now what we can do is I can select that, have a little helper script which should look up called material relationship. That'll select all of the same material and then give me an option to multi-edit. There's again a multi-edit UV. This is really useful. So now that's selected everything of the same material, which is what substance paint are like. So I can do Control A, Control P, and that matches. So that's really tidy. As you can see, that is just there. I can just move it up a bit, but that's the best size you'll get. So then you can decide whether you want to split this up to maximize the UV space, and I personally would. Looking at that, I would go across these here and slice these. Didn't want to do that. Slice them. mark them as a seam. See now that you get a bit more space to play with now, but everything's in relation to itself. And it just gives you a bit more working area. Might give myself a bit more of a boundary when I'm working, so I've got more to play with when I'm in Substance Painter. Oh, we've got something going on here. What's that? So this is another advantage of having it synced up. I can select that, I can hide them. Go into local mode, and I can see what the issue is here. I'm going to put a seam in there, and I'm going to put a seam in there. There we go. Actually, I didn't want to do that, I just wanted to highlight all of that. There we go. And we're still getting that issue here. So we've got something going on. Another thing you can do is in edge mode. You can select one in there, do Control E, and just mark a seam there. And I can select that one, say do a Control E and clear the seam. Unwrap that. So yeah, that's definitely getting crossover. So select that. I'm going to mark clear the seam. I'm going to select that and I'm going to mark a seam. This is where you spend most of your time unwrapping. It's tidying up things like this where it gets a mess. So that didn't work, so we'll take a couple of steps back. Alright, and I'm just going to leave it at that. As long as it's nicely separated, it doesn't really matter. As long as we're getting a good clearing. And so what I'll do here is I'll actually mark that as a seam. I'll mark that as a seam. Unwrap. And what I really need to do is I need to mark that as a seam. And mark that as a seam. Try that. There we go. Still not elegant. Mark that. Seam. There we go. That's it. So now we've got something that occupies as much UV space as it possibly can. And then when I go into each individual item, you see that just shows that. Oh, that didn't work. That should have shown that. Ah, that's interesting. That should have worked. Try again. No, something got broke there along the way. So let's try that again. I'm going to mark these as seams. And I'm going to mark them as a seam. Now let's try unwrapping. There we go. That's better. Still getting that issue there, so select them. I'm going to mark them as seams. Select them. I'm going to mark them as seam. Unwrap. There we go. Can live with that. Can live with that. So now, hopefully now when I select that, that's better. There we go. So that's that. So here we do a similar thing. Control A, Control P. Now do I want to maximize the seams here? So I'd say yes, so I'll select them too. Mark as a seam. Unwrap. Right, so that gives you them. That's great. Do the same with that. Select all. Going to select all. Now it's not showing the multi-edit there simply because there's actually only one object. So that particular item is fine. Select all the blue. And it's only selecting that in the visible layer, by the way, so it's not selecting everything. This will show you everything that's in the same, even though it's not in the same layer. So that's okay, that's all good. Right, so we can save that. Now all of that down should be great if I select everything. And I go export FBX. And we'll just call it Thruster SBX. Oh, it's Thruster02. And I'm going to leave that there. Selected objects. Geometries, don't apply any modifiers. Oh, actually no, yeah, don't apply the modifiers. And face. The reason we don't apply the modifiers, if we did, we'd end up with... Actually, yeah, we can apply the modifiers. I'm talking rubbish. Right. That should be fine. Let's export that and see what happens. I'm going to save that. And going to run Substance Painter. Right, new project. Standard PBR job. Select my mesh, which is the thruster. I'll work with 1K files for now. So there's that. First things first, shaders, base material, black, blue, vent material, all good. So now my maps, PBR rough. We're not bothered about AO, so that's all good. Bake mesh maps. There's no ID map to bake. No ambient occlusion. We don't need normal. So bake all texture sets. Okie dokie. So let's take the base material to start with. If we solo, we know that we're only dealing with this. And aluminium tiles is pretty funky. Let's just drop that on. Right. First things first, do we want UV projection? Hold down Alt and go. Let's scale 4. That's different. So, yep. So you could go with that, or let's choose something a bit more interesting. Iron plates. Just wait while it sorts itself out. Okay, so let's try triplanar, and let's go for a scale of 8. Okay, scale of let's change it. Scale. What are we looking at? Try UV projection. Nah, that's a bit much, isn't it? Let's just do an iron rusty. That's quite funky. So we'll leave right at that for now. The black. Let's just look for metal. Dump that on. Blue. Actually, that would be quite funky. Let's try that one. Yeah. Vent metal. Vent metal. Anodized. Let's just change the colour to a sort of a blue, dark blue. Alright, turn the solo off. There, the blue. Now that's a bit much, isn't it? The rainbow. Let's metal cast. Oh, not metal cast. How would that look? So you can either drop it on the item, or you can how's that? Nah, that's no good. Oh, let's try a copper and just change the colour to a blue. Like that. Okay, we'll go back to the base material. Let's try that with something else. Iron raw. Yeah, let's try that. And just bump the scale up a bit. That's nice. That'll do. So let's say that we're happy with them for our thing. I think for the blue we'll add a layer to it. Let's add a smart material. Blue dirt machine. Let's dump that on top of that. Oh yeah, let's have that. And blue. Painted metal, we could just make that a bit darker. And I'm happy with that, I think. So let's say that's our final material. Then we can just save this as an SPP file. So Thruster02, and let's export. textures. And what you export is entirely up to you. You just look at these configurations. I happen to have one with AO, or you can just have the straight metal roughness. PBR roughness, no emit. And you can remove ones. So I've got PAR reference, no emit. Now that's one thing you want to watch for. If you're coming into Blender, you want the OGL normal. Everywhere else you just want the standard normal. So metal, rough, PBR roughness, no emit. I would delete that. And I shall add an RGB, and we will take normal OpenGL. From normal OpenGL. Right. Select my output point. I'll just stick it on temp for the moment. All of them output in at 1024. Open folder. There are various textures that you would pull in for your game, or you could pull them back into Blender. This has gone on quite a bit now. I might do another one to show you how to pull it back into Blender.